Hey guys, this is a Q&Trey that I did a little while ago, and I really hope it brings you value. I talk about a lot of things. We talk about what happens if you're passionate about a lot of topics. How do you make content for that? Will people enjoy that? Another thing we talk about is kind of an idea for if you're streaming gaming, which is a question I've never addressed before. We talk a lot in this episode, so I really hope it brings you guys value. Make sure you comment below the thing that you learn, something that you're going to put into practice. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell. Love you guys. All right, let's go to this Q&Trey.
Okay, so I have a lot.
Yes!
So, like, my biggest issue is I feel like, okay, so can you have two different tribes? I put audiences on my question, but now we're talking about, can you have two different, like, types of tribes and have two different types of content, or is that weird?
So here's the question, though. So what are the, can you say the two different types of content?
My biggest things that I, like, feel passionate about, but then it might be fixed if I can pick, like, one or two, like you said, like, explore it. But, like, I'm really passionate about, like, music culture. So, like, you know,
cool.
we go to those emo nights and stuff, but like that whole, like, culture of that, just because in, like, the hipster culture, like, all of that, like, concerts, like, events and stuff, also, like, fashion of that, like, all, just everything about that.
Yeah, music culture.
And then also, like, I'm really passionate about, like, emotional and mental health, and I think those two kind of go together, but they're also kind of different. But then, like, on the opposite side, I'm really into, like, DIY, like cheap, like doing stuff cheaply, I guess, and then also gymnastics, like sports and, like, college athletics. So, like, those are, like, the areas that I'm, like, really having a hard time because I feel like they're all different. Whereas
right.
A couple of them kind of go together, a couple of them don't, and so, like, I have a really hard time figuring out, like, if I'm supposed to try to find an audience that fits all of those, if I just need to narrow down my, like, passions to pick just a couple and just do that only, or if there's, like, you can have two different types of things that you talk about that you.
So I'm going to answer. Okay, yeah, this is great. So I'm going to answer it multiple ways. Number one, I think there are ways to have two different audiences. So something I've done personally that I'm now doing. My YouTube channel is just for dreamers and doers. I'm honestly thinking more when I create YouTube content, I'm not thinking about pastors. I'm thinking about you guys. Like, I'm thinking about people who are trying to make it in the real world, you know? Like, you're trying to create a new business. You're trying, like, all these things. So I'm trying to create content that's fun, engaging, relating to you by saying I'm also building something as well. Let's relate on that level. And I'm gonna have fun, and I'm gonna give you some encouragement with scriptures and all that kind of stuff. Now, pastors enjoy my content, but I'm realizing I'm missing out on pastors because, like, I can really help them more. So what I've done is now my Facebook is, instead of just Trey Van Camp, my Facebook is Pastor Trey. And on my Facebook, it's purely my sermon stuff. But now I'm creating more and more content saying, hey, Pastor, you want to create a vlog? Let me tell you how to do it. Oh, check out the YouTube as I'm actually doing it.
So you're using different, like,
I'm using different ways of communication, different platforms. So that's one quick answer of, like, okay, maybe I can think my gymnastics will be Facebook, kind of this, but then all that. But here's the other thing, though. Here's what's really cool. I bet you there's a bunch of people out there who love music culture and DIY, and they will freak when they finally find somebody that does both. You know, like, don't be afraid to narrow down your niche or niche. Don't be afraid to narrow it down. So, like, that would be, because I feel like those things don't really go against each other.
Right, yeah. I just, like,
they don't naturally fit, but that's, like, your personality. Yeah. So I think, and like we were saying with the 5, like, figure out 5 topics, blog about all of them, and see what really gets people's attention. I heard this the other day. If you have too many, figure out, like, your top 5 or 6 obsessions that you really love. And for, like, a period of 6 months, talk about all of them. And then go to analytics and see what really resonated with people. So maybe they only like 2 of those topics the most. Now go ham on those 2. But what I hate is I hate making content that I don't love. So make sure it's stuff that you love. But that's hard. That's like a really, really tough question that I'm still trying to figure out. But the way I've kind of solved it is maybe, hey, this is what I blog about. This is what I podcast about. And this is what, they're all different. Even what I podcast about is different than my YouTube channel. But it's still me. It has to always be you. I don't know if I helped you at all.
No, that, it does help. I mean, like the whole today all together.
Yeah, but I think like something I realized is I try to put down the fact that I'm a pastor on my YouTube channel. I feel like that's hurt me. Like, because my thought is I want non-believers to love this content. So I'm going to really not hide it, but I'm going to brand myself just as Trey. And I think that's helpful. But at the end of the day, I'm not being true to myself or my audience if I'm like randomly on episodes trying to hide the fact that I'm starting a church, So like be you. And I think though that when you are you, people go, this is so cool. Like I would also maybe snoop around and see, think about the creators, like the people you follow, they probably have multiple niches as well. And that might be encouraging to you. And notice, how are they tying all those things together? Sometimes they tie it all together just by a color palette, just by a color grade, but really it's totally different topics, but it looks the same. So that's how it feels uniform. It's too bad that you love too many things,
No, it's really like weird.
No, like but the 5 buckets thing, I would narrow it down to 5. Go hard on it for 6 months on all of those, and then honestly look at the data and then make a decision. Doing just these 2 things, does this still make me happy if I don't talk about those anymore? Because you can still talk about those in real life. It's not like you can just never talk about gymnastics again.
Right. Yeah.
But it's better than what you're doing now, which is
nothing.
Right, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like better to do a bunch of stuff and see throw a bunch at the...
Throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks.
Yes, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks.
So like, with all the things that I want to blog about, I want to like link it all back to like being a Christian, essentially.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I do a really poor job at representing, like, being a Christian on social media. I'm not really on, like, I'm on social media, but I don't use it to, like, talk about my faith, and I really want to do a better job about that, and I want to, like, connect everything in my blog to that in some way. Like, I want people to know that I'm a Christian.
Right.
But how do you, like balance, like, so for me, like, blogging and, like, my social media, how do I balance between, like, oh, check out this blog, like, this is all stuff, like being too, like, pushy on social media, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, how do you balance that? Because that's, like, a big fear I have with my blog, too, is I want to tell people about it, but I also don't want to be, like, annoying.
I know. I hate it, too, because I hate that I do that, but it's like you work so hard on it. Yeah. So first of all, don't feel ashamed that you're telling people go watch it. You spend all this time on it. And a lot of I've learned a lot of my people, they're like, I rely on you telling me on social that I'm like, you need to hit the bell and I don't have to keep doing this for you. So don't feel ashamed, but I think there's a lot of creative ways. Some of the creators I've been following online, they're Christians, and it's interesting. So on again, I watch videos, right? So on their video content, they just have joy. It's like, man, there's something about them. You can tell, like, as Christians, they have the light, right? So what they decide to do is they talk about whatever content that they have, and they just love it and they enjoy it. But on their Instagram stories, they share a lot about their faith. They talk about, all right, good morning, this is what God's teaching me today. So like they found, again, the different platforms is really to our advantage. So Instagram stories are like the most authentic way to connect with people right now. So talking about how your faith has been impacted through that, I think is like easy, quick. That's how you can incorporate your faith right away. But that's up to you. Some people, you actually incorporate what God is teaching you with your Instagram posts, on your blog. I think like for my content, sometimes I explain it like a funnel, so you need to have content sometimes where everybody loves it. It doesn't mention Christ at all, and that's okay. It's not, as long as it's not anti-Christ, right? And then, but randomly you do have content that's like, hey, this is how God's working in my life. Like, I'm gonna only talk about that today. But then you have the other stuff again. So like randomly peppering them, and I think that's how you reach non-believers, because they like you, they've learned about you through your other content, and then it warms them up to when you do bring up Christ, you're like, so that's why she's so joyful, But then it's that really hard balance. But it's like, this is how God's working in my life. Instead of it pointing at them, just say, this is what God's doing for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's hard. That's really, I think that's like the new, like our generation, how do you bring up your faith strategically? Social media is a big one.
And I think even just sharing about your life is hard. Like I think when you start social media and you're doing that, it's easy, but like I don't do that on social media. Like I'm not a very like
You're about to be a
This is
pastor's wife too, so.
I know, which I think is really cool because I have all this random stuff that I like.
Yeah.
Like that whole like music culture thing doesn't fit with like a normal pastor's wife.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
I just don't know how to do it. So
There's only one of you in this world, right? So, but I also think even as simple as like, hey, I'm going to church today. Like even that, like there's just stuff. And this is why I like podcasts of bringing people even further and like you two sitting down talking about your faith together. Because you have like your blog post is like what you want. Really, Instagram's everybody. You want to bring to a blog post, you want to get a blog post following, but your tribe will also follow a podcast. And I think that's the funnel. So for me, my podcast is like I'm hammering you with all the truth. Yeah. Like I'm not holding anything back. And if you've gotten this far to where you want to listen to me on podcast, I know that I can share everything. So that might add that to your repertoire. You know, Caleb loves to listen to himself talk on the microphone. So like, you know, that would be cool. So I think that's the other thing. Don't limit yourself to one platform. And I think people would want to listen to you on audio. So, and then, but it's another thing like how to share that. Share a video clip that brings people value. So don't just say, hey, go watch this. Share a part of it to where even if they didn't click through, they were blessed by whatever they just heard. You know, like a 15 to 30 second clip of like, I needed that. So anytime I learned that from Brady Sher at the Atlanta conference, he said to effectively use Instagram and all your social media, 15% or less of your posts need to be promotional. So the other 85% are native to the platform and you're not telling anybody to go anywhere else. You're just blessing them, giving them value there. Okay. So that's really hard. But that's like the strategy. That's how you get attention. And then they will listen to you when you say, hey, go to this link.
How much time do you think you personally spend in a week producing content?
How much time do I spend?
On all of your platforms. Because it seems like when you say like, yeah, utilize other platforms, like that can actually be, like to me that like appears stressful because it's like the more platforms, the more time.
Right.
Not always.
Yeah,
it might be
no,
just
I
copying
understand.
and pasting, but like for you, yeah, if you're going from an Instagram post to a podcast, that's a totally different production.
Right. Yeah. So I'm weird and I don't have a real job, so like that helps, right? No, but that's kind of like my calling is to produce content for people. So don't use me as the measuring mark of like, hey, I need to post every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Monday, Wednesday, all that. So what's easy for me is, so this is my strategy. I spend the most time on my sermon, so I just do a lot of sermon prep. And then I figure out how can I make this into micro content. So I take an idea. Sometimes I preach the whole sermon. The last 2 vlogs, I've incorporated a sermon clip, right? So I'm reusing old stuff, but putting it in a new format with other B-roll. And then I can take a podcast and talk about that same topic just in depth. Like there's a way to where I'm not having to start from scratch. Usually my sermon's like everything, and then what can I take that small idea from, this small idea from I learned from, and put it into different stuff. So like an Instagram post, I can take part of my message, take a photo, like my quotes as you guys see, and then just put a scripture. So really, the only prep work I do is my sermons. And then it kind of trickles down into everything else. So for you, like your blog posts, that's like where you put all your effort in. But then you could take a concept on that, put it on Instagram. You can take another concept you thought about and talk about it. You know, so it's not, but it is a lot of work. So I don't know, my wife can probably answer that better than me, but I probably spend lots of hours producing content. Yeah. But about to spend 21 days not producing content. I'm stressed out about
21
that.
days with your wife.
Yeah, right?
I think just scheduling stuff, it's like really important. Like, so say like, you know, like next week on Thursday, you don't have anything that whole day. So take that entire, you know, like take 6 hours of that day.
Batch.
And yeah, like schedule everything out for each different platform.
And I've gotten into a rhythm, so it makes sense now, but it was a lot harder before. So it's figuring out how to, so for me, everything's video, and then if I show a picture, it's just me snapping a picture from the video. It's not like I'm taking photos. So you can reuse so many other things. Yeah. But again, I understand the nature of what I do is different than the normal person, and that's hard. So it's easy for me to produce all sorts of different content because I spend so much time, because I write 8-page essays every week. So that's a part of it. But it's annoying if everybody did that. Like, be okay that you don't produce that much content, you know?
Thank you.
Good question.
So my YouTube channel, I want to incorporate vlogs with video games and reach the gaming community. And my hardest part with that is not really knowing what to talk about when I'm not doing a vlog. Because doing a vlog, yeah, it's hard because you got to talk about yourself or find stuff to talk about.
But you've seen enough examples of that.
I've got enough stories that I can go rant about.
Yeah.
With my wife. So the hard part is when I'm streaming or just recording me playing a video game. That's where no one wants to sit there and listen to silence and watch you play a game.
I never watch gamers.
I know you don't.
So I have no idea, but some interesting ideas. I don't know if people do this, but have friends come over and you just talk about random stuff all the time. Like, it's almost a whole nother set of entertainment. So you have fun. Dude, Zhang's your boy.
There you go.
Yeah,
You know?
like the Joe Rogan podcast where they just get and they talk about random.
That's so true. Joe Rogan podcast, I don't know what it's about. Like, it's about everything. He's like, oh, I'll bring in an astronaut, and then I'll bring in a pot smoker, and then I'll bring in and it's like, this is incredible, you know? So it's like, what is going to happen next? I don't know. That's one idea. Right? People literally are so lonely. They just want to hear people talk to each other about the most random stuff, you know? So like, that's all it is. I feel like on gaming, entertainment's the big value. So like, how are you not, because you're informing them by how to play. Like, they're watching how you play. Maybe you explain some things along the way, but also they just want to kick back and hear you talk about life. But I won't come over. I don't play games.
Yeah,
It's just, we don't play that game.
You could come over and talk about something else.
Yeah, I can talk about other stuff. That's true. So that's an idea. I would just research, look at the top gamers, right? Look at the top gamers and what are some things they talk about, and then think, what are some things I'm interested in, and dump it in. This is the best time ever to communicate with people and to relate with people and to preach the gospel to people. I'm so convinced, obviously, Great Commission is going to be fulfilled. Every tribe, tongue, nation is going to come to Jesus. And I think social media is going to be a huge drive behind that. And I'm so excited to be a part of that.